was biased.
All right, so Google Classroom. This is all interactive here. So if you click on any of these slides over here, it's going to take you to where those are. There is a ton of resources in here. So that's why I want to make sure you guys have it. That way you can go back later and play around and look at some of the examples and templates. So then you can find me at jmayhan@usd109.org. And I really wanted a reason to put my, picture in there. So we're going to talk mainly on Google Classroom, but we're also going to focus on docs, slides, Google Drawings, Google Sheets, and then your Google Drive. So your Google Drive is basically just where all of your Google stuff is stored. I feel like everyone kind of knows that. It enables you to share and collaborate. To get there, you click on the waffle in the top right-hand corner, and that's how you access your Drive. Or you can type drive.google in the address bar. If you need cheat sheets for how to work Google Drive, that's here. You can organize your Drive. You can share it. You can use colors. I finally went through and organized mine for the first time in probably 6 years, so now it looks beautiful. I'm pretty proud of it. The first thing we're going to start with is creating and personalizing your Google Classroom. Now, I know some of you already use Google Classroom. I know some of you might have just started using it during remote learning. And my goal in this is to show you how you can take Google Classroom or Seesaw, whatever learning platform you quickly adapted, and actually utilize that into your classroom. Skip that slide.
Uses Google Classroom, is that correct?
Colton does.
But for your remote learning, what?
I used Seesaw.
You did Seesaw? Okay.
Okay, I might be skipping a slide. I'm not sure what slide that is because it doesn't want to load. Good enough. Okay, so when you're creating a classroom, does everyone know how to get to Google Classroom? Because I think that's my slide that's skipped. Let's see if I can. Okay, let's present from there. Let's see if it wants to load. Is it loading for you guys?
It's loaded for me.
Okay, well I can't get it to load, so I'm just going to back out of it quick. All right, so with Google Classrooms, you have two different ways. It's not showing up. So let's just do this. You have two different ways to access Google Classroom. You can click up here, and your Google Classroom will be here in your waffle. Mine was not. I had to scroll down, and mine was down here at the bottom, and I just dragged it to the top. If you don't want to access it that way, you can type in, I believe it's classroom.google.com right here, and it'll take you there too. So, don't know where that slide went, but it's gone. So when I log on, this is what mine looks like. I have a ton of different Google Classrooms that I'm a part of and ones that I have created in the past, and those all show up on here. If you want to start a new Google Classroom, you would click on this plus sign up here at the top. This is what it would look like. You just fill this out. You can really only do the name part. That's the only part you really need. I normally go through and put like math. When I did 5th grade with Brenda, I would do like Riddling math, McCarty math, and I would separate it that way. So you have options like that. When you create your class, this is what it's going to show up looking like. If you see right here this little code, that's the code that students will always use to access your Google Classroom. You can click right there and it's going to make it big, pop up on the screen. But the code will always stay the same. And once kids enter your class once and use that code, you won't have to use it again. So what I usually do is I either make it big up here, I write it a few places on my board, but anytime you log into your Google Classroom, that code will always be right there. So you can find it. So I named this trial class, that's why the name is here. So if you would have said 3rd grade reading, that would have been there. If you put the section, I put McCarty. So that's why it says McCarty there. And then you don't pick your code, so it's always kind of something random. When you open, it's always going to open to Stream. And Stream is kind of like when you log on to Facebook. It's always like the news feed where you see everything that's posted and things like that. So it always logs on right to that part, which is your Stream. And then you have the classwork option, and that's all the assignments that have been posted. They're stored there. It's where you can create assignments. Your resources are there. And it always organizes, but whatever has been posted. That's where you spend the most of your time. That's where you spend the most of your time. Come on.
So you were saying the last post is at the top?
I was thinking it was.
Because I know like Seesaw, it was always.
But it says due March 27th,
Yeah,
due
it's
March
at the top.
31st. I don't remember how it actually stores them. I would really like this to work though. Okay, we'll just get out of that so I can show you this one. Under classwork, there's a lot of different options. When you hit create, that's where you're going to create your assignments. You can schedule a Google Meet right through this. You can access your classroom Google Calendar and your class Google Drive. Now, like I kind of added a screenshot into here. In my Google Drive, I have a folder that says classwork, and that saves all of the work from all of the Google Classrooms I'm a part of. So this is what mine looks like here, because these are all of the Google Classrooms I'm a part of. And it organizes it for me. So I have like my trial class. I have Ritterling Social Studies, Reedy Math, Mrs. Straight's 4th grade. I have a whole bunch of resource room ones. A demo one, McCarty 5th grade, McCarty 1819. So they're all saved, it's all organized. Anything I posted, anything the kids post, shows up there. And then assigning Google Meet's a more recent thing they added, but I like that because you can assign the Google Meet right to your Google Classroom. Hopefully some of these pages continue to work now.
You plugged in.
Yeah.
It's just loading really slow. Look at it. It gets kind of stuck clear down at the bottom.
Okay, next up is people. People is all of your students, any of the teachers you have it with. The only thing that I think is kind of a disadvantage to Google Classroom is, well, I guess depending on how you look at it, parents aren't on this. Whereas Seesaw, you can add your parents, there's that parent communication, but this is just for your students here. And the other thing I think is kind of challenging is, so if you see here, I have 6 email accounts for the STEM Lab. So when I want to play around and see both sides of this, I log in as the East STEM Lab. Because as a teacher, you can't see what the student's version of this looks like with Google Classroom. You only see the teacher portion. So unless you have like a second email, so when I was trying to play around with it, I wanted to use another email. My other email was a Gmail account. Well, it wouldn't let me use it because this was USD 109. So I would say that was kind of a disadvantage, but it's not a huge deal if you can't see the student portion. But I like to, that way when I was explaining it to people, I could kind of show them. When I was doing the training through Google Meet, I could show you both sides. The next part is grades. Oh, did I go back to stream?
Yep.
Just kidding, I didn't talk about grades yet. You can change your classroom banner. That's this blue section here. You can choose one of the pre-made ones, or you can add any picture that you want to add yourself. But any picture you add is automatically going to go to like a darker setting. Still works. I just always personally choose the pre-made ones. Up at the top right-hand corner, you'll see the little, what's he called? Like a, what's this thing called?
Gear.
Gear, yes. And that's how you change your settings. And the settings brings up 3 different tabs. You have the class details, so if anytime I want to, so if all my stuff was McCarty and I wanted to change it to Mayhem, I could have went through and changed that there. There's the general information that shows my code. You can turn off if you want students to be allowed to post and comment on each other's stuff. You can show different notifications and show deleted items, whether or not, if you delete something, if you want students to be able to see it or not. You can turn on whether you want to generate the Meet link. And then there's different things here for grading that you can customize as well. And the grading portion is under grades, but I apparently come to that later. So when you're creating a Google Classroom, it's automatically going to go into your Google Drive. Everything's going to be stored in one spot. Assignments will be stored inside your folder automatically. And you don't erase that folder, because if you erase that folder, you don't have it anymore. And Classroom will also create a Google Calendar that will store all of your due dates. So like when I go to my Google Calendar, I have every single person's Google Classroom that I'm a part of showing on my calendar. I can have that option to turn it on, and that way then you can see, oh, I assigned this for this day. Oh, this person assigned that for this day. So I think for Penny Massing, this would be super beneficial, because if she's involved in many people's Google Classrooms, you know, she can keep track of all the various due dates and help keep students kind of on track. How to create assignments. Any questions so far?
What do you, like, where, say I use something
Mm-hmm.
in counseling. Her kids know Seesaw, Grove's kids know Google Classroom. Do they both know each other's? They can go back and forth between things. It's not gonna have to start from.
No, usually since we've kind of switched.
That's what I wonder. And then.
I don't know that Colton uses Google Classroom a lot in the classroom though, did he? I don't think he did.
Posted the links and stuff on there.
Honestly, I'm not sure if until remote learning happened, how many people actually use these each day. I know Connie used Google Classroom quite a bit. I don't know that she used it every day, but she used it pretty regularly.
And you use Dojo, right?
Yeah, she uses Class Dojo.
I think I'm gonna switch to Seesaw.
So currently with remote learning, we had K through 2, all Seesaw. Third grade, Ashley was Seesaw, Colton was Classroom. Jenny was doing Class Dojo. I don't remember what Ashley Straight was using. I think her and Amanda were both Seesaw.
Seesaw, weren't they?
And then Brenda and Connie were Classroom.
Google Classroom.
I think Penny mainly used Google Classroom. I believe you used Seesaw, correct? And then I think 6th grade and up mainly uses Google Classroom. But you could use Google Classroom or Seesaw, either way. And most of them, at least Google Classroom works with Seesaw. But Seesaw doesn't really work with Google Classroom. Because when you are adding some assignments onto Seesaw, you could add from your drive. And you can do things in Google, do things with Google Classroom, and actually put them into Seesaw. So when I actually talk about Seesaw, I'm going to show how if you want to use both, you kind of could. And Seesaw can just be the way that you have parents involved. You have parents seeing your work, so you could create everything on here and kind of just show what you want on there. It's your preference. But my goal in this is, you know, we spend so much time working on Seesaw, working on Google Classroom, is to show how we can now use those in our classroom. Any other questions?
I have one comment about
Yes.
the stream. When we would put assignments on, everything would be on stream, and the kids would be, for 5th graders, they were confused at first because they thought they were just going to stream because that was the first thing that popped up. So what we did is we took everything off of stream, and that way they would go directly to classwork, and there was no confusion as to, you know, when to do assignments or
Well,
the dates and stuff.
and one thing that I think too is now that kids are back in school, and if kids are back in school, whatever happens, if we start doing this in the beginning of the year, is to take that time and actually explain to them, this is what it looks like. You know, we threw you into it, but now let me explain how to find stuff, how to do this. And I think that would make it better in the future for if this would happen again or whatever, so that kids know. And I think one thing I saw a lot of kids doing too during the school year is be like, well, I submitted it, it didn't show up. Google doesn't work that way. You probably didn't submit it. So just making sure they knew how to use it, and hopefully if this would happen again, we can prepare them a little better.
Yeah, because they would just hit submit because they opened it,
Yeah, and they'd submit something blank.
but they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And I said, well, no, you have to do it.
Have to do the work.
And I noticed too, like with Colton's class on his stream, a lot of the students were just writing random messages to each other and responding to each other like, hey, let's do Google Meet at this time. And certain kids would be talking back to each other and having conversations. So you can shut that off if that's not what you would want in your classroom too. Because I know personally I wouldn't want just random conversations going on my stream where I want my classwork to be. So when you create an assignment, you would click on the class work tab, and you have tons of different options you can do. You have assignment, you have a quiz assignment, question, material, reuse an old post, or a topic. Now the material, there's like a little flag here, and that will stay at the top, and you'll always have your materials up there. So I especially think of math. If you're doing certain equations or certain forms, or like the weekly vocab words or the weekly spelling list, you can kind of, they'll be right there with the materials. I like that you can reuse a post. Quiz assignment is through Google Forms. An assignment, you can kind of pick any that you want to do. So that's kind of how that works. This is what it looks like when you go to create an assignment. You have the option down here to attach a file from your computer. You have the option to attach from Google Drive. You have the option to attach a YouTube video or a link. So if you're attaching a link, it could be anything like a Flipgrid link. It could be Brain Pop. It could be just, hey, here's all the websites at the beginning of the year that I want you to bookmark. When I taught 5th grade math and social studies, I often created a Google Classroom, and I didn't use it the way I should have back then, but I always put those links on there, especially like AR, and I was like, here's the link, bookmark it. So now when you go to take your quiz, they're not typing in random letters trying to get there, because I sent it to you, you click it, you bookmark it. So that's what I loved about this at the time. And once you do this, you enter in your title, your instructions, you can pick your point, you can add a due date, and you don't even have to add points. It will grade stuff, or you don't have to. This can be like a grading thing for you, kind of like how Seesaw was, but you don't have to use that option. This is kind of important too. If you add a file onto there, they have the option, so like here's a spelling sort template. You have to decide if you want them to just view the file, edit the file, or make a copy for each student. So depending what you're doing, I had it make a copy for each student. But it all depends on what your preference is, what you're assigning. Because if a student can edit the file, that means they can edit that whole thing that you created. A little daring. So you got to kind of choose accordingly when you create this stuff. If you assign, you can assign it immediately, or you can schedule it and have it assign a certain day. So when I first was creating some of this, I actually was showing my sister how to use this, and she was scheduling hers. So maybe she spent Monday planning her stuff, but then she would schedule a quiz for Wednesday, schedule one for Thursday, schedule something for Friday. That way, you don't have to do this every day, but you can have it prepared, have it organized. And then if you're not ready to submit it, just hit Save Draft, and you can come back to it later and keep editing. Well, I guess I didn't cover it. I covered it somewhere, but I can't remember where. My favorite part, too, about this is Google Classroom kind of has some differentiation built in, but it's not super obvious. If you click on this tab here, it says All Students. It will show you every student in the class. So maybe I'm adding this quiz that's going to be hard, and I know I have 5 kids who maybe need an easier version. I can submit this to all the kids but those 5, and maybe submit those 5 something else. Or I think of, hey, little Timmy gets pulled out to go to Mrs. Massing's room or Shelly's room, so they're not here for reading, but I want them to be part of this because maybe they do spelling with me or do something else. So I can assign to everybody but that student. So they don't feel left out, they don't know they're missing it, because they just don't see it when they get on there.
So mine doesn't have the bottom part thing that you had, like, going to the drive and all that. Am I just at the wrong place, or, like?
I feel like right there. When you hit create, it'll show you the doc slide. Or
And
when
that's
you hit,
where I would upload them?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Yeah. Yours looks a little different than mine. And then the ads should give you the other options too. Yeah.
Okay.
Mine might not just be updated. So she, on hers, she doesn't have all this the way I do. She has add and she has create, and that makes it a little different. So I can show you that. So you're kind of, let me go to my Google Classroom. Let me find mine. So when I go over here to classwork and I hit create, let's say I want to do an assignment. I have the add option here, which shows all those, or I have the create option, which shows all those. Kind of the same thing, just a little bit different. All right, moving right along. Next is types of assignments. So these are just some assignment ideas you can use, and I'm giving you assignment ideas using Google because it was my easiest way. So with Google Docs ideas, you could do an essay with this. You could do a research paper. This could be a way to collaborate in real time. I often had my students in social studies do like they were writing a blog, or they were writing a letter, or they were doing something as if they were a historian from a certain time. They were writing like newspaper articles. And the one thing that I loved about this is you could collaborate in real time. So if Brenda and I were working together, we could both be typing, saving both of our work. We can both access it. And it was pretty simple. You can do research notes. So if we're working on a group project, it's a great place to keep notes for everybody. It's a great place to organize your work. You can do blog posts, interactive collaborative journaling, and templates. So on the bottom in some of the notes underneath these, there might be templates or links I have. If you guys are following along, there might be some links in there that you can access later. I'm not sure if this one does. So a lot of these I have hyperlinks to them. So for Google Slides is probably one of my favorite Google tools. You can do presentations. You can create an ebook. You can do a hyperdoc, which is basically a big link inside of each other. So it might just look as, like our choice boards we did for specials were pretty much a hyperdoc. You click on those and it takes you to another place. You click on it, it might take you to Flipgrid. It might take you to code.org. So those are kind of like your hyperdocs. So I have two different examples here of hyperdocs that had tons of templates and ideas of how you can use those in your classroom. I've seen a lot of people using, especially during remote learning, interactive games. There's actually a checker one going around where basically you can play checkers with your students using Google Slides. Excuse me. So you can send that template out, and you can still be playing games with your students. They could be playing games with each other. And you can do that all through Google Slides, which you could send through Google Classroom. There's so many templates for Twitter, for TikTok, for Snapchat, My Face When, all sorts of different things. I think my favorite Twitter one I've seen is tweet something as if you were a scientist, and what would they say? So you assign them maybe Thomas Edison, and what would he put? Something he might say that'd be funny, and there's tons of templates here if you click that. And those are all from Matt Miller and Ditch That Textbook. Next up, I have the interactive notebook. So, you've seen this interactive notebook on paper that people do. Same thing, just using Google Slides. You can do drag and drop activities. There's tons of those on Teacher Pay Teachers, or you can find them free through some of these resources I provided here. You can do a collaborative presentation. Choice boards, which we actually use Google Docs for choice boards for specials, but you could have easily done them here through Google Slides as well. Magnetic poetry, digital interactive notebook, book snaps. I really like the book snaps idea, and I talk about that later too. So if you click that link, it gives you examples of what book snaps are. Basically, students can take a picture of what they're reading, and they could have done that with Seesaw, they could have done it with Google, either way. So they take a picture of what they're reading. Maybe they're going to circle their favorite line on there, and they can add a picture into it. And it's basically just building what they're getting from reading through something called a book snap. It's pretty cool ideas. You can use them with any grade. And there's tons of more ideas. If you click on this picture here, it's going to take you to 30 interactive Google Slides activities. And I actually think below here in the presentation notes, I have 2 links as well that'll take you to different templates or ideas. I love Google Slides. You can use it for literally anything. Next up is Google Drawing. Google Drawing is pretty similar. I actually taught 3rd through 5th grade this year using Google Drawings how to create a meme. And that was really funny to see what some of the kids came up with. But you can use it for a digital poster. You can use it for graphics, book snaps, again with Tara Martin. There's tons and tons of graphic organizers that you can do with Google Drawings. You can do with Google Slides. And the one thing that's nice is with Google Drawings, I can download any of that stuff. Like if I put a graphic organizer in there, and I can always add it to Google Slides or Docs or Word, any of them. Not Word, it's the same as Docs. Anywho, you can do comic strips, add and pass activities. So maybe I'm going to start something, and the next person's going to finish it. You can create a meme or annotate any image. So maybe I want my students to look at a picture of something from history. I don't know. The Boston Tea Party would not be a good example right now. The one of like George Washington on the boat and there's ice all around him. You could put a speech bubble and have students write what he wants to say. Or if you do a timeline, you could put the dates in the bottom and do things like that. Digital manipulatives, that was a big thing I saw during remote learning, is people putting their math manipulatives on Google Drawings and sharing them, because that way students could add more, they could manipulate them. Maybe you wanted to show base 10 blocks on there. It was a way for students to do that. An interactive whiteboard, and then again, you could do magnetic poetry on there. At the bottom, I have a bunch of different templates. The link there. Here is a whole bunch of ways to use Google Drawings. I think this is probably Matt Miller's. So if you click here, there's options here. Tons of templates you could try with your students. Next, I have Google Sheets. And I will be honest, I absolutely hate Google Sheets. When I was doing my my Google certification, Google Sheets was the thing that stressed me out. So I tried really hard to find ways to use Google Sheets. Spreadsheet stuff. That was the first thing I came up with. It's how you can use Google Sheets. There's something called pixel art, and that's Alice Keeler gives examples of that. And it's basically like you're taking those squares and coloring them and creating art that way. Because you never know how there's all those squares in Google Sheets. So you can do pixel art. That was an example. A digital rubric. A classroom resource sheet. So maybe you want all the students to have each other's emails or something like that. You could keep track of that, share it with your students. It's a great way to research planning, collect group info, self-assess. There's tons of spreadsheet games out there. And the one that I thought was the most fun that I ran into while planning this was Eric Kurtz has Battleship. So there's a link to set that up. Once again, I'm a Matt Miller fan, so I have 10 Google Sheet tricks you probably don't know about. I know I didn't know about them. So I added that there. There might be some more sources down below. I don't remember. Next up is Google Forms. If you didn't know how to create a Google form, I added a tutorial if you click on here. There's tons of ways. You can do surveys with this. One idea I found that I really liked was having students create their own Google Forms and creating their own reviews to share with their classmates. That way you're letting students take ownership in it, and it's becoming more student-centered instead of teacher-centered and me coming up with all the questions. You can let students come up with questions that you think might be good. Each day you could do a daily check-in. Hey, how are you feeling today? Maybe you want to do a Google form for lunch. Have students pick their lunch that way. Choose your own adventure stories. That's something you could do with Google Forms. Sign up sheet for anything. You could do lesson plans on there. I personally do my lesson plans on Google Sheets, but you could do them on here. The nice thing about Google Forms is you can have it self-grading. So it kind of saves that for you. You can do exit slips. There's templates for the Amazing Race Google Edition. I'll be honest, I don't really know what the Amazing Race is, but there was a lot of people sharing that, so I was like, has to be good. So I added that to it. Another one that's really huge right now is digital escape rooms. We did escape rooms with Katie. It was fun. You can do them digitally right here, and you can find those. There's a ton on Teacher Pay Teacher, but honestly, if you just Google digital escape rooms, you'll find a lot of free options too. And then at the bottom, I have some additional Google Forms resources. And this is not in the right spot, but here's how apparently you grade your assignments. So, when you're grading your assignments, you can see right here, and I actually did not create these slides for this one, but you can turn in ready to grade. You can see there's 20 turned in. I'm missing assignments from 2 people. It tells you it's super easy to find. Here, no students turned in, but it's assigned to 24 kids. Here, you have 21 graded. So you can see how many are graded if you graded them. And if you click the 3 dots, you can mark as reviewed and remove from the to-do list. That means it's not going to be there for students to do anymore because it's finished. So this is what it's going to look like for you. You have your student's name, whether or not your student turned in the assignments. You can add comments and feedback for the students to see. Now that's only going to the students. It's not going to go to everybody. You can type in the grade manually. You can attach a file. So if you do a specific rubric, you can attach it there. And that rubric is through Google Drawings. So you can toggle through assignments too. These arrows will let you go see different assignments. Sometimes you might have to return them, so here's that option. When you finish grading, make sure you return students' work. I've also seen students' work returned because maybe it needs to be fixed or it hasn't been completed right. So there's that option too. But you can also return it when they're done. This transfers ownership back to the student. So when they submit it, you're now like the owner of the assignment. When you return it, it basically transfers the ownership back to the student. Now it's their work and they keep it. And it marks it as graded in your to-do list.
There was one thing about Google Forms that I want to mention. I used it for vocabulary for science or whatever, and so the biggest thing was I had the vocab words at the top of the form, and the students would do the form, send it to me, and they'd say, well, it says I missed 3, but I know the answers are right. And I said, well, did you type it the way it is spelled at the top? Because if they misspell it, if they put an extra space, if they do anything different than what's the answer at the top, it's going to count it wrong. So I just told them, I said, don't sweat it. I'll go through. And so I would manually grade them. So I think that was the only drawback, was if they don't type it exactly the way you've got the answers in there.
But you still have the option for multiple choice then too. You could have always done multiple choice to get rid of that problem as well.
Right.
But one thing I really like about Google Forms is that when you have kids taking a quiz, you can prevent them from opening any other screen on their computer.
Right.
So if I'm doing a quiz on science, I'm horrible at science, but by clicking a certain button, I can prevent them from opening tabs and Googling it, because you can't really, I mean, granted they're at home, they can still look on their phone or something, but they can't open any other screens when they have that form open, and you can put that as a setting, which I really like. And another thing I like too is sometimes, you know how in quizzes, like, questions are leading, so it might lead you to another answer. Well, you can do like question 1, 2, and 3, and then you have to click next, and then those questions are gone and you're on the next tab too. So you can kind of section it off where you do these first, and then you can go to the next part. That's another option you have. So when you are grading things, you can choose to see a summary or a specific question or an individual student. So those are your options, the summary, question, or individual. And if you click responses, that's where you're going to find the form. Click on it. You'll want to click on responses, and that's what it looks like. So this is all in grading Google Forms. So you have the question, responses at the top. And I generally like to look at it, if it's all pretty much the same answer, like if it's multiple choice, it's super simple to look at summary and you can just go down and look. If it's something where I want to see more specific, you can do question or individual. And it also sends it to you in an Excel spreadsheet, not Excel, in a Google Sheets, and it'll send you your answers that way too. Grading form, you have multiple choice, multiple mark, short answer, you have drop-down boxes, and those can all be graded automatically. So if your basketball team was leading by more than 20 points, the situation would look bleak, and then it gives you options here. Is it false? Is it true? And you can see how these students graded. It's scored for you 1 out of 1 if they get it right. When you're grading Google Forms, you can go to each one and hit the next button. The red X is obviously incorrect. The green check is correct. You can actually give partial credit because you can type that in there if you would like. So maybe they got part of it right, but part of it wrong. You can fix that. And paragraph questions have to be manually graded. So when I'm doing Google Forms, I obviously don't write that because I don't want to manually grade it. You look like you wanted to add something. Did you have something to add?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I
You're
agree.
giving me a face like you're thinking about it.
No, I agree.
The next thing I'm going to talk about, anyone have any questions before I go on to apps you can use it with? No? Okay. So now I'm going to talk about, it's called app smashing. And app smashing is just when you take another app and put it into something else. So here's a list of 70 plus apps that actually work directly with Google Classroom. But I get pretty specific here. So quizzes, I'm actually going to teach about quizzes tomorrow. I love quizzes. And one thing I like about it is it pairs directly. When I go to assign a quiz, it pairs directly with your Google Classroom, and I can assign it as an assignment in Google Classroom. So Quizzes is an app that looks a lot like Kahoot. It's great for formative assessment. The question and answers are on each student's screen. It goes at different times. It comes with a meme. It's pretty fun. Like I said, I teach about it tomorrow. If you're curious about it, here's a tutorial. Don't click on it until at least after tomorrow. If you still have questions. Up next is BrainPop. With BrainPop, you can import your class directly into Google Classroom. And likewise, with BrainPop, you can create a class. Well, you can create a class in Google Classroom and put it into BrainPop. So if you want to assign a BrainPop video to your students, you can do it that way. Instead of just copying and pasting a link for them to see, they'll have to have a login. So if you attach it to Google Classroom, it's already ready. Students' accounts are automatically created when a teacher imports a class, allowing students to log into BrainPop through the Google Launcher menu. And that's one problem I think a lot of people had is they wanted to do a BrainPop video, but how do you have students log in? So using Google Classroom will help take care of that for you because they kind of work together. Flipgrid. I love Flipgrid. Flipgrid is a website that allows you to create grids or short discussion-style questions that students respond to through recorded videos. You can take your Flipgrid videos and put them into Google Classroom. So especially if you want to record your instruction, you can use Flipgrid Shorts, which is a 10-minute video. So if I want to record myself teaching an assignment, I can take that short video, and it's a link, and I can put it directly into Google Classroom. When you are adding a topic on Flipgrid, at the bottom, it gives you an option to put it. I think there's like 6 different options there that it allows you to send it to, like whether it's Remind. I don't remember what all they are, but I know Google Classroom is one of them. So Google Classroom works really well with Flipgrid. Next is Khan Academy. Khan Academy is a great way to show math instruction. I used it for Hour of Code. It has quizzes on there. It teaches all sorts of different math material, and that directs to Google Classroom. You can import their Google Classroom rosters into Khan Academy and directly assign Khan Academy content to your students. Nearpod's not one that I generally use, but it's an interactive presentation and assessment tool, and that works directly with Google Classroom as well. Did you use Nearpod?
I did send a few assignments
Did you like it?
during continuous learning. Yeah, but I'm not real familiar with it. Like, I couldn't tell how the kids were doing on it. I don't know if they like grades it or whatever. I mean, it's like a presentation and then there's a quiz and
Yeah, it's similar to EduPuzzle as well.
yeah. So I only sent a few, so not real familiar on it, but
Well, it goes with Google Classroom. But you can do quizzes, polls, videos, images, drawing boards, web content, and so on. And that goes directly, you can assign it directly into your Google Classroom. Pear Deck, I did a presentation on that previously. I love Pear Deck. Obviously, since Pear Deck is an extension through Google Slides, you can also use it with Microsoft PowerPoint. But since it's with Google Slides, it goes directly into Google Classroom. It's easy to connect all your devices. It really increases student engagement because every single student is able to answer. It's anonymous. They feel comfortable. I like it. You can do the flashcard portion through here too, and you can send that out through Google Classroom. There's no need for URLs or any of that stuff for students to type because you can share it right through the classroom. Wakelit. Wakelet's something that I've been slow on liking lately. Wakelit is, it's almost like a Pinterest for education. Basically, you create a Wakelit and you can save anything into it. So eventually, after this class is over, I'm going to send you guys a Wakelet, which is going to have all my Google Slides presentations. It's going to have the videos. It might have links to different templates. And it's basically just to curate information and save it and send it all to you. I can send you one link, and it's going to maybe give you like 100 different ideas. It's a great way that people are sharing resources with other educators. You can collaborate on it. I actually really like it the more I've used it. But it's a great way to save, organize, share content across the web. And you can even use it with students. So if I'm going to teach on turtles, I might have you look up as much information as you can, and you can save it to a Wakelet and collaborate with your classmates, and they can all be adding their different information that they're finding, whether that's a picture, whether that's they found something, a YouTube video that works. You can add all of that stuff into there. Or if you have them creating assignments, you can have them all saved onto Wakelet and share them that way. So one thing I have for my Wakelets already is I'm teaching about Flipgrid AR tomorrow. So I have a ton of different ideas that I found on Twitter saved on Wakelet, because if I can't remember things. It's a great way to remember those ideas, and I can make them public for other people to see. You can collaborate and have people add their own ideas onto it. So it's just kind of a great way to curate information and share it. IXL is math related. I have never used this, but I really think Colton used this.
I used it.
You use it too?
But it's not, it wasn't free for the whole thing.
Yeah.
You have to eventually pay.
I don't like that. I like free. But if you pay for it, it works with this. It provides unlimited practice in more than 7,000 topics covering math, language arts, science, social studies, and Spanish. It's interactive questions, awards, and certificates. It keeps kids motivated and helps them master skills. And it works directly with Google Classroom. The next one is GoGuardian. GoGuardian is basically how you can see what your students are doing on their computers. That works with Google Classroom. It mirrors the classroom you've set up. It syncs to student accounts, so that way you can see what students are doing when they're on their school computer. If you have it set up for certain times. I know Mrs. Reedy had this set up, and the kids would be like, Mrs. Reedy's going to know what I'm doing in the STEM lab. I'm like, probably you're logged onto your computer. If she has her GoGuardian set up, it's a great way to be like, we know what you're doing. We know if you're accessing things you shouldn't be. And instead of having to type in students' usernames and all their information, you can import your Google Classroom list directly into GoGuardian, and then you can kind of manage what they're doing. Because, you can walk around the room as many times as you want, and someone's still going to find something they shouldn't. So this is a great way. If I'm not watching what Pat's doing, I know Pat's doing what she's supposed to, because maybe I have her set up on GoGuardian. And it definitely gave the 5th graders a whole different perspective of, I really need to be doing what I'm supposed to because she's watching me.
Yep.
Any questions on the apps that you can use? Honestly, you can use any app pretty much with Google Classroom, because you can always copy and paste a URL into there to share with kids. But those are some of the ones that were very specific as they match, they go together, and they work like a champ. Any questions? All right, now I have differentiate like a champ. And when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, how can you differentiate with Google Classroom? When we're doing remote learning, we have a lot of different learners. We had a lot of kids in special ed. How are we meeting their needs? And I didn't have an answer for that, so I did a lot of research, and my man Matt Miller came through with ways to differentiate with Google Classroom. So here is a bunch of his resources. You can make any video your lesson. You can embed questions into a video, prevent students from skipping around. Some pre-made video lessons that are already created you can share, and you can assign videos directly to Google Classroom. So that was some pretty simple ways that you could just include some differentiation, and here's some different models that you can use. So it says, give a formative assessment. You can do Kahoot, you can do quizzes, you can do something with Flipgrid, and you have 3 different groups of students. You might have groups A, group B, and group C. You always are going to have kids like group C. I'm bored already, you're taking too long, I need a siesta during your class because I scored an A on the formative, I already get this. Everyone has those kids. Or there's the, I'm almost there, I just need a little more practice. And then you have, they need intensive help. They're going to struggle. It's going to be hard for them. So using Google Classroom, how do I make sure I'm meeting the needs of all of my students? So assigning stuff to specific students is amazing. So maybe I'm going to assign the formative assessment for everyone. And then my group C students, I'm going to assign something extra because I know they're going to finish right away and they're going to need something more to challenge them. So you can take a regular lesson and modify it for group A and group C. B might not need anything else because they're already there. They're where you want them to be. But group A needs more because they're not getting it. So maybe after their formative assessment, I might send them a Khan Academy video explaining the math concept in a different way, and they can work through that. And maybe group C, I'm going to find some challenging game for them to do, or maybe I'm going to have them research something else, or come up with their own questions on Flipgrid that I can then share with group B and C later. So you don't have to do all of this yourself either. You can have students come up with some of the ways to do this. Your group B, you can use as peer mentors. You know they struggle. They're wonderful to help others. And along with some strategic pairing by you, you can make it work for everyone. So that's just one way. When you do differentiate, obviously it's gonna be more work, but it's what's best for your kids. The next model is set up an extension Google Classroom. So basically you're setting up another Google Classroom. Let the first assignment be, what would you like to learn about in regard to, students can answer right on Google Classroom, so when you're feeling drained or any ideas, go there. My students are far more creative than I am. Like I said, I copied this from Matt Miller, he taught Spanish, so this is what he was using. Put the things on extension class that first inspired you to pursue teaching in your field. So for him it was food, music, culture, and travel. Teach about these things, and the kids begin to get excited and request more on the same topic. It's another way you could differentiate. And the last one, what if there's kids that are still bored? Basically make them their own Google Classroom. These are the ones that he was a Spanish teacher, so those are the kids that he never spoke English to. Everything was in Spanish. Do novel studies, Skype with Native Americans and native speakers in other countries, and ask them how you can challenge them more. Because if your kids are bored, and you have those kids who are higher thinkers, ask them, what do you need? What would you like to do? I don't know if maybe our kindergarten and first graders won't give you the good answers, but some of our older kids might tell you what they need to be challenged more. And the last thing I have for you is some extras. And these are just links to all sorts of different things that you can use with Google Classroom. That's all I have. And I looked for every way to add my Bitmoji. Do you guys have any questions?